I didn't know anything about business. Like, I didn't know anything about how to negotiate. I'd read all this advice and I threw myself into networking groups and I was terrified, absolutely terrified.
Hello and welcome to the We Built This Business podcast, the place for UK entrepreneurs and business owners who want to build a multi-million-pound business. I'm Daniel O'Sullivan, founder of Red Cactus Events, Team Building Experiences and Shizoo Media. Speaking with some of the UK's most successful entrepreneurs, I will unpack their journey from startup to where they are today. Once a month, I will record a solo episode giving an inside look at our progress as we begin to build a $5 million revenue group in the event and media industries. If you want to build a multi-million-pound business, you're in the right place. Let's head over to the podcast. Today, I'm pleased to have Catherine Storey on the We Built This Business podcast, talking about her company, Freshbat. Catherine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So, Catherine, if we could start by just telling us more information about what Freshbat is today.
Sure. So Freshbat is a strategic growth marketing agency, and we predominantly support B2B businesses, so mainly consultancies and tech businesses, with sorting out their marketing with a content marketing first approach and really focusing on that inbound lead generation, but also nurturing prospects as they go further through their customer journey and further through the marketing funnel.
Perfect. So there's quite a lot of information there, Catherine. You sound like you do a lot of things. Can you just break down exactly what inbound marketing is for those that don't know what inbound marketing is?
Yeah, of course. So inbound marketing is where you are trying to attract people to find your business. So rather than reaching out to them, which we do sometimes do for clients, we mainly focus on trying to create that really high quality marketing system that is really repeatable. You can scale it up as your business grows, and it makes sure that people are able to find you when they're ready to buy. So we tend to find it is a little bit slower than some of the outbound marketing tactics that you can also use, but it does set you up really well. It is a really sustainable way to help grow your business.
Perfect. So some of the mediums that you would use for an inbound strategy, I'm thinking blogs, social media. Can you give me a bit more of an info on what those would be?
Yeah, so we are often looking at, definitely social media. That's kind of one of the first core services we were offering as a business. But also blogs, SEO, looking at how you are making sure that your content and your business is appearing first when someone's going out and searching for something. We're also seeing quite a lot more social search as well. So making sure profiles are optimized. It's not just about the content on social media. It's about making sure that when people are looking for something, you're the first person that pops up or the first company that pops up. And also emails as well. So I think email marketing is often forgotten about and people think, oh, cold emails. But actually, also thinking about, making sure you're regularly connecting with your customers and anyone in your pipeline, not necessarily through a cold outreach process, but when someone has shown interest in you, and actually staying in touch with them and keeping you top of mind. Because we know, especially in B2B, buying cycles can be really long. So we're hearing and working with some clients where they're even up to maybe 3 years that they need to nurture a prospect before they finally sign on the dotted line.
Okay, so that sounds great. I mean, we'll get into more detail on all of those aspects as well. I just wanted to touch on Freshbat. Freshbat. Is it yourself? How many colleagues do you have? Where are you located?
So we're a fully remote marketing agency, which is really interesting. So we have a team located all around the country. I am just north of Oxford in a town called Brackley. And then my team are we have a couple of members in Derby, so kind of that way. We have a team member in Aylesbury. Our managing director is in St Albans. And kind of like located all over. We have a core team of 8 of us at the moment. And then we also work with a few freelancers as well who support our kind of activities as and when we need to.
Fantastic. Sounds like it's a really great business and obviously growing as well with virtual, looking at being able to look after businesses all over the UK essentially, which is great to hear. So let's go back, Catherine. So when you left school, did you envisage starting a marketing agency?
No. So it's kind of a running joke in my own marketing agency that I have never worked for a marketing agency, so I don't actually know how one works. I sort of just make it up as we go along, but it doesn't everyone. But no, actually, so when I left school, I went to university and I studied languages at Durham University, which was great but really hard. And then when I got to the end of my degree, everyone said, "Okay, so what are you going to do now? Are you going to be a translator or a teacher?" And I said, well, neither of those. I don't want to do either of those things. My mum was a languages teacher, decided I didn't want to do that. I'd seen all the depression and stress that came with that. Very much admire anyone who is a teacher, because that is
Definitely.
a tough gig. So I knew I didn't want to do that. And I actually found myself in Nottingham and I didn't know what to do. So I ended up getting a job in high street recruitment. And I survived a whole 5 months, because it was horrible. Not for me. And learnt a lot there. But then I ended up going back into the education sector and I worked in international student recruitment as like a kind of recruiter going out on the road overseas, recruiting students from all over the world to come and study degree programs. That was at De Montfort University. I did that for a few years. And then I did my Chartered Institute of Marketing qualification in the evenings. So I retrained, did a professional diploma in marketing. And then I ended up working in employer brand ad management consultancy for about a year before I then went back into education. I just couldn't get away from it. And then I was a head of marketing at an independent school in Oxford for 18 months. And that was kind of into the pandemic. And then at that point, I left that job and started my business. And even at that point, I didn't know I was going to have a marketing agency. I just left that job, burnt out, was like, this is really hard. I'm going to just try do something myself. And then sort of worked as a consultant for about 9 months and then ended up kind of getting an intern on board. And then it kind of grew from there. And that was back in, March 2021.
When you started the business, a lot of people obviously struggle with that decision to make, that I'm actually going to start that business. I'm going to leave the current position that I'm at. How did you get to make that decision?
So we always sort of knew, and when I say we, I mean my family and kind of immediate friends, that I was not destined to work for other people. That's kind of the best way of putting it. So if you check Companies House, Freshbat was actually incorporated in February 2019, not March 2021. So obviously kind of March 2021 is our official kind of birthday as a business. But actually, even before that, I was starting to do little bits of contract work alongside, for friends and people who needed bits of marketing help. So I kind of like dabbled in it a little bit that way and kind of got a bit of a taste for it, but still not really because I still had the security of my main kind of normal job. And then, it kind of, my hand was forced a little bit because I experienced this horrible burnout in sort of November 2020. I think a lot of people probably felt it. If you were in any kind of professional job at that point, my organisation, the company I was working at, the school, they'd made everyone, or like a third of people had been furloughed, but the workload kind of increased because I think a lot of people think that schools shut, but they didn't. They just went online, which
They
actually was
carried on, didn't they?
way
Yeah.
more work, especially in the
Yeah.
independent sector where people were paying, 40 grand a year for, that education. So, as the head of marketing, it was my responsibility to make sure we were getting enough inquiries in, so leads in business speak, I guess, to convert them and get them on board for the coming intake. And usually they would do that through in-person events, so open days. So I think I remember in March we had an open day scheduled, and within 24 hours we were in lockdown. And I had to pivot it to being online, which was probably not the best event ever, but it didn't get cancelled, so I take that as a win. But in terms of starting the business, my hand was really forced because I wasn't getting the support I needed from my senior leadership team. And I couldn't go on. Like I sort of just, sounds very dramatic, doesn't it? But I think we all kind of have those stages where I just wasn't getting the support. I, was spending a third of my day just literally managing requests. I had this giant spreadsheet of requests and I was constantly saying no to people because there was too much work and not enough resource or support. And so, I kind of had a bit of a breakdown over the kitchen table. And my husband then came and sat down next to me on the sofa and said, I think it's time for you to resign now, isn't it? And I said, yeah, I think so. And then that was on the Friday. And then on the Monday, I just handed my notice in. And it was the only time I've handed my notice in with nothing else to go to. And at the time, I remember my family were all very scared for me, I think, as well, because I'm from a kind of family. I don't have any other business owners in my family, very risk averse. My family are in public sector jobs and university sector and things. And everyone, even my husband as well, was very worried that I wouldn't get any work and wouldn't have anything to do. And even he said to me, oh, can you do some like a contract or something? And I said, well, they're actually really hard to get in the pandemic. And because I had such a strong background in education, no one would give me an opportunity in the private sector. So it was kind of a bit of a mess, really. And so I had no choice. I kind of had to just get on with it and work out what I was going to do. And then I actually ended up getting my first contract before I'd finished my notice period in February that year.
Fantastic. Well, it's that courage when you, like you say, that you're influenced by the people that are around you and by closest. And if you've got, like you say, your family and other people that are not run businesses before and they see it as quite a risky thing to do, it's very hats off to you to just go for it and literally go, no, this is actually what I want to do. And in hindsight, obviously looking back now, you're always going to do it.
Yeah, of course.
It was just wham, essentially,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
And sometimes you need that push. And I started our business about 13 years ago now, and the catalyst for me was actually redundancy. We were offered redundancy at the place I was. I was already doing a little bit of the work already, and I was like, you know what? Now's the time. I'm going to take it and go for it. If it doesn't work out in 3 months' time, I'll get another job.
Yeah,
And
that's it. Yeah. And it's kind of having that attitude as well. I think there's never say never. At that point I couldn't work in that environment, but it wasn't to say I would never go and get another job. I mean, now it kind of is. But at the time, we said, okay, well, I'll give it a few months and see what happens. And then if I haven't managed to make it work, haven't managed to get any business, don't know what I'm doing, then I'll apply for other jobs. And I do remember at the time I was still in conversations with recruiters. I was still looking at other jobs, but obviously none of that really materialized because I guess my heart wasn't in it. I was more focused on setting up on my own. So yeah, but it was tough. It was the word you used, courage, is a really good word. You have to be really brave, I think, or sometimes I say maybe a little bit stupid as well, but in a nice way.
in a nice way. I call it naivety as well. Like
Yeah,
you don't know
yeah,
what you don't know, do you? So
yeah,
things are always hard, especially when you haven't done them before. But
yeah.
when you first started, what was the kind of the most challenging thing that you found?
When I first started, I think the most challenging thing was just I didn't know anything about business. Like, I didn't know anything about how to negotiate terms. I didn't know how to protect myself from clients. I know that sounds really odd, and
Mm.
it's one of those things where I did all the classic mistakes, where everyone says don't undercharge. Okay, I was like bargain basement prices. They say don't always have really strict payment terms. Oh no, you can pay whenever you feel like it. That's totally fine. Don't try and do everything. I can do everything. I can do everything. Make sure you specialize. Oh no, I service absolutely every type of business. It was, I
Yeah.
feel like fortunately, I went through them quite quickly. I learned quite quickly and change and adapt quite quickly. I don't tend to make the same mistake twice, but I definitely did go through all of that because I just didn't know. And I think one of the things I found hardest as well was, I'd read all this advice and I threw myself into networking groups and I got a business coach and mentors and all sorts of things. Just, I fully put myself out there. I was like, I don't know any of you people. I'm just coming along to a networking group. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified. But so that was quite challenging. But actually I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't have any business education or any idea of how businesses worked, like cash flow, pricing strategy, all these kind of things just felt like really bizarre foreign concepts to me. And yeah, I just had to do a lot of learning very, very quickly.
How did you go about learning? Was it, do you read books? Do you listen to podcasts? How did you kind of upskill yourself?
I read a lot of books. I have got a bookshelf back here that's just packed with business books. So I did a lot of reading. I love reading. I just did a lot of Googling, a lot of YouTube videos, like those kind of things, just exposing myself to as much of that as possible. But then what really helped me the most, I think, was actually connecting with local business owners. So because it was in some ways kind of good timing because it was the pandemic. So loads of events were actually online, which I found had less of a barrier to entry for me starting out because you can turn your camera off, you can just leave. If you don't like it, no one's going to know. You just pretend your power went out or whatever, or you
Yeah.
lost your internet connection. But
You
that,
haven't driven halfway across the country to
well,
go to it.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're not physically in that room, you don't physically have to, think about how you're presenting yourself in the same way. And I think that takes the pressure off a lot. And And that really helped just to get a sense of how these things worked. And I very quickly learned that actually a lot of other people, even having been in business for many, many years, are in the same boat when they go to a networking event for the first time. It's a bit awkward. You don't quite know what to expect. You really have to push yourself to get out there and go and meet some new people. So I think that really, really helped me. But connecting with some key people who were much more experienced in business than I was really helped me to see the possibilities as well. Because I think at that point, I didn't have a vision. I didn't have it was just, I'm going to try and make as much money as, I was earning in my job. That was like the extent of the vision, which is not a vision at all. It's just, a
But
random
it's,
point.
I suppose when you think about it, it's a good goal to have though, isn't it?
Yeah.
As in because, milestones, goals, all those sorts of things. You were
Yeah.
laser focused on, I need to replace the income I was getting from my job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I imagine once you did that, there was a little celebration somewhere.
Yeah, there was. And then quickly I went back into not having replaced that income as I started hiring people. But it's a
Yeah.
lot easier to do that when you're on your own, I think. And then actually, the next phase was then developing and bringing team members on board and then making sure, there's enough money to pay them and all the systems and stuff. So although we're remote, we do obviously have overheads as well. Not as much as an office or something like that, but there are a lot of tools and systems that we use. And then working out how you can pay yourself on top of that, that has been a bigger challenge sort of in that next phase for me.
So would you say you hire before you get the work, or do you get the work and then you hire?
I have sort of hired before I get the work, which is totally against what most things will recommend. And I literally was reading a book the other day, Agencynomics, which is all about like the economics of running a marketing agency. And they always recommend definitely get the work first and then hire. I don't know why I've done it the other way around. I do know. I find it really, I'm the main salesperson for the business. I find it really hard to sell if I don't believe we can deliver it.
Mm.
It's really, really hard for me to sell something that I'm not confident we have the resource and the expertise to deliver. But the way we do it now is we manage it very carefully. So we do hire ahead of the curve, but only assuming we have the pipeline that's coming in. And that's based on, sort of years of experience now, knowing what's likely to convert and what cost is, or what the price point is that they're going to convert at. So yeah, I've kind of done it the wrong way around, I think. But you have to do what feels right for you, I think.
I think just your gut feeling. I mean, I'm with you, to be honest. I have a feeling that the business is going to come in, or we're going to grow, or we are going to get busier later in the summer or whenever. And I would rather have people in place ready to be able to deliver it than the other way around. And
Yeah.
I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer, but yeah, you will always have one guru that will tell you one thing and one that will tell you another, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the issue for me with doing it the other way around as well is that it puts immense strain on my team. And if the team is under pressure, they're not delivering as well as they could be and should be. And that worries me because then you are likely to lose clients, and then it's much harder to replace them because you're then scrabbling around for work. So I think there is a benefit to having a little bit of a buffer in your delivery capacity to make sure you can do that. But key to us being able to do that has been making sure our pricing is right. So we are
Mhm.
pricing ourselves high enough that we can afford for there to be some hours not booked.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, but it's trial and error. And although I feel like, oh yeah, knowing what I've done now, if I were to start another business, I would accelerate through all these bits and not make all the mistakes from before. I had to go through those things to learn it. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm the type of person where I have to make the mistake myself. It's all very well someone telling me, but if I haven't done it myself, then it's not going to sink in quite as well.
Yeah, and if you're going to make mistakes, make them quick and move on, isn't
Yes,
it?
absolutely. Yeah.
That's the thing. Don't keep going just because you think it might work in the end. Now, on the talent side of things and finding people, it's a challenge in every industry. But how have you done it? Obviously, working remotely, you've now got access to a global population in theory.
In theory.
How have you kind of mastered your recruitment process?
I wouldn't say we'd mastered it, yeah, but it's a work in progress. So I'm trying to think of the ways we recruited. So I've tried different things in the past. I have used recruiters. Now I think, I come from a recruitment background. There is a huge benefit to recruiters. Like I know they get a bad rap sometimes, but if you get good recruiters, they can do amazing things. But I do think that I made a mistake in using them because it was very expensive for the size we were. And I think you probably need to be a bit bigger before you go down that route if you need to. The other thing I found has really helped me recently is working on my own personal brand as the CEO and founder of the business. So, LinkedIn has been really, really good for our recent hires. Our two most recent hires have both come directly through LinkedIn. I didn't even put an advert on Indeed. I didn't actually even advertise on LinkedIn. So, where you can put a job ad out on LinkedIn. I didn't even do that because you just get a barrage of dross. So
Especially
I
if you
just
put remote on there as well.
Yeah, so I kind of try and adopt the always hiring attitude now. So, because the business is growing really quickly, we kind of sometimes don't always know exactly who we're going to need. So I'm trying to hire more on cultural fit now, and then finding a role that works for that person, which is quite easy to do at our size. As we get bigger, we will need to be more specific. But yeah, the last two hires I've made have just been directly through LinkedIn. So recommendations from people in my network. And I think building my network has been almost more valuable for hiring than it has been for getting new business. I know everyone thinks about networking as, oh, I'm going to do this to get new business, but actually it's great for getting the right people as well. And when those people have come in, if you think about, so I used to have a role in employer brand, as I mentioned earlier on in in this recording. And it's all about making sure that you're kind of like you were trying to attract your clients, your ideal clients for business. In recruitment marketing and employer brand is about attracting the right people for your business. So having videos up talking about what you do will help people understand what it's like to interact with you. And having information on your profile about what your background is and kind of what you stand for and your values, all of that's really, really imperative to be able to hire quality talent into your business. And it's so overlooked, like the employer brand area of marketing is definitely something I think a lot of small business owners will think that's just for bigger companies. It's just for like Deloitte, or that's just for, a massive company like Boots or someone. But it's not. It affects you even more as a small business because you can't carry dead weight. And that's what I've seen over the past, 12 to 18 months. I have made bad hires and had to exit them as well. And you have to try and get it right when you get the right fit people coming along, and find a way to hire them if they come along at the right time.
Yeah, definitely. I like the phrase that you're always hiring, because there's always going to be evolution in business. You're either growing or people are moving on, and you need, if you've got someone in mind and you could just drop them a message because you've built a relationship with them, it makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on that personal brand side of things. So obviously you mentioned about company brand and personal brand. As a small business owner, which I am, what would you say is the most important strategy if you're the CEO MD of the company? Would it be to focus on the personal, or would you say the company?
Definitely the personal, if you have to just choose one, because of the old saying that we all know, people buy from people. You can easily make sales. There are businesses that make sales without a website. Everyone thinks, oh, I need to faff around with the website, but it just doesn't even matter really. Like when you're starting out, especially, obviously your website becomes important as that becomes a source of leads for you. And, that's really essential to get it right. But in the first instance, you should be focusing on sales rather than marketing, really. Like, it's all to do with, getting out there, making connections with people. I heard another great phrase a couple of years ago, which is sales is a contact sport. And so if you hide behind your marketing and you're never getting out there speaking to people, you're probably not going to make sales, not in something as high touch as we do, where it is all about that connection and that relationship with our clients. So yeah, personal brand can literally pay dividends. And I've put a real focus on mine over the last year or so, and it is really, coming into its own now. And I get people anecdotally saying they really like my content, and have some really interesting conversations on LinkedIn with people. And people just thinking, oh, you're doing amazingly well and stuff, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like that from my point of view. But it does. It's a really powerful tool. And yeah, if you had to choose one, I would focus on the personal brand first. And then your company brand can kind of come out of that, because when you're a small business and the founder of a small business, your company brand is so closely tied to your own personal brand and your own personal values. So you can't really ignore that factor.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definite that we're in the era of the personal brand now. If you look at, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Richard Branson. They
Do
were,
you know what? I used to do, when I was doing employer brand, I used to do some training for the wider team at the business I worked for. And I remember at the time using Donald Trump as the example. I can't remember what
mm,
year it was, but it must have been when he was president and the first time. And people would physically recoil. They'd be like, "Why are you showing me Donald Trump in my training about about personal brand?" And I'd be like, because you have such a strong reaction to it. Every single person has such a strong reaction if you put a picture of Donald Trump up, whether positive or negative. And that is the sign of a strong personal brand. Like, you may love him or hate him, but you can't deny the personal branding is strong because like if you've got branding right, whether it's personal branding or company branding, the point is not just to attract the people you want, but to repel the people you don't. And if you've got that like repulsion as well in it, then it's doing its job.
and he's certainly got repulsion, hasn't he, in many forms, but he has still got a huge following
Indeed.
as
Well,
well.
yeah. That's it. Like for every person who despises him, there's someone who absolutely reveres him. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the classic example.
This podcast is sponsored by Team Building Experiences. If you're planning a team building event, away day, or corporate event, then check out team-building-experiences.co.uk and state podcast 15 in the comments to receive 15% off your proposal. So let's talk about some of the services that you offer. Obviously, we talked about a bit about personal brand. If, say, for ourselves, if we were to come to you, we're a company about 1.5 million turnover, 15, 16 staff, that sort of size. How would you kind of build something for us? We've talked about the different mediums. What would you kind of do first of all, let's say?
So when people usually come to us, first of all, they often are coming to us with like, can you help with our social media, or we don't like our email marketing or whatever. But that's actually usually the last part of what we decide to what we're helping a client with. So the first stage is always to look at your strategy. So we developed we productized our marketing strategy service just over a year ago. And so we now do marketing strategy in a day, which is a really cool offer actually. So we get together for an in-person workshop. So even though we're remote for most of our delivery, this is the one bit that we try and do in person, and get everyone together in a room and we work out your marketing strategy. So we take it from all the way from kind of like your marketing audit, which we do before the session. So like really working out exactly what you're doing at the moment and what results you're getting from that. And then in the session, we talk about your branding and positioning a little bit. And then we go into your target audience, what your business goals are, what you want to achieve. And then looking at the audience, because really all of marketing comes back to your target audience and, where they are and what their pain points are, how you're solving their challenges. And then looking at mapping that out. So where are they at different points in their journey? Are they once we've got the idea of who your personas and who the audience are, okay, what media are they accessing? Like, do they like videos? Are they on TikTok? Are they more on LinkedIn? Do they prefer emails? Will they come to a webinar, et cetera, et cetera? So we go through that. And then after that, we look at content pillars and types of content to create, and then look at the tone of voice, all of that. And then finally, after that, we get to the point where we say you should do X number of posts on this social media channel. But basically, it's really funny because everyone comes to us at the end point because they're like, what should I be doing? We just don't know. And then we say, okay, let's take it back a step and go through that process logically and methodically so that we then get the answer, because we can't know the answer before we've done the kind of background work on it.
Yeah. And I imagine a lot of companies, especially small businesses, the strategy is the most important part because they will want to do some of the parts themselves, I guess.
Yeah,
They may
usually.
outsource some of it, but they obviously, they don't have the resources that a larger company will have.
Yeah, and they might already have internal marketers. So we often work with internal marketers. So we do the strategy, but then we often kind of talk about ourselves sometimes as the outsourced marketing department as well. So, businesses can outsource whole chunks of their marketing, if not all of it, to us. And then we'll sometimes work with in-house marketers where we can provide that extra specialist kind of strategic marketing approach. And also when we're thinking about the growth marketing side of things, looking at not just how they're generating leads and focusing on that brand awareness, which is kind of typical of digital marketing, but actually looking at how are they, maximizing their conversions throughout the journey. So, everyone focuses on get new leads, get more brand awareness, great. But then it's thinking about further down that journey. How do they, like, how are you converting your customers? What are your proposals like? Are you even sending out proposals? Do you even know if you're sending out proposals? Honestly, some of the conversations I have are mad. It's like, yeah, okay, so what are you doing in your sales process? And they're like, don't know. Actually, now you ask, oh my God, how? So, it's all those kind of things. And, there's huge opportunity as well in kind of the email automation space and CRM management. So we help with quite a lot of that as well. But just making sure that, you're setting sales up for success as well. So thinking about that marketing and sales alignment. So they're not operating in silo, which is very, very common. So they're actually working together. And so you're getting the feedback loop from sales to inform your marketing messages that then help people go through the sales funnel, and then it kind of repeats again.
Sounds fascinating. And then, I mean, I'm heavily involved with our marketing essentially, and we've had a big drive this year to create kind of a content factory, almost video first
Yeah.
approach with the rise of AI and everything else that's going on with words. Blogs. For example, I can write a blog on HubSpot now in about 3 seconds. You just literally type in what you want to do,
I know
and it
HubSpot is on it with their AI stuff. Yeah.
writes it for you and all this sort of stuff. So we've really focused on video. But in your opinion, no one knows exactly where the attention, like you say, is going. But how important is video to a small business?
Yeah, very. in a word. I think it is really important. We do find that I think people think, oh, they're suddenly going to go viral or get loads of really, really great metrics and stuff from it. And actually, I'm seeing mixed results. So I'm going to be honest. Everyone says, oh, video will get you more attention, say on LinkedIn, which is a major channel we use. I am seeing mixed results from it, to be honest, across our accounts and our own account. But I don't ever think it's a bad thing. It just gives you more of an opportunity to connect with your audience. It gives you more of, you just get to see the person a bit more. You can see facial expressions. You can see how they articulate themselves and hear the words they're using. And I think that's amazing. And I also think there's something about, people who are prepared to put themselves out on video. I think for me, it's really important that I do videos within our content marketing, because otherwise I can't really justify telling any of our clients to do it. So I have a bit of a rule that I like to, anything we're selling, we have to be doing for ourselves as well, or have at least tried it in the past. Because I don't really want to ever be selling something that we haven't got first-hand experience of. Because I just think you can't really know as well how it works. But yeah, video is great. I have definitely been resistant to it myself in the past. I think like most marketers, like we're actually quite resistant to a lot of marketing tactics. Like I always say, I will never click on an ad ever, but I will then go and I'll see the ad and I'll go and research the company, which is where the content inbound marketing comes in. So,
Got it.
yeah, it's an interesting one, but yeah, video is great. And I think the other thing with video is people do tend to overthink it a bit. They think, oh, we need to do video, so we're going to have to invest loads and loads of money in massive like professional videos and hero videos and videographers. And they're great. They are really, really good. But people just like the short, sharp content that's really authenticity is the big buzzword at the moment, isn't it? But it's true, like the clients that we're working with where we get the best video results, they're like walking their dog and doing a video for 30 seconds, or they're just out and about. And some of the ones I do, I just literally sit here and record it. It's not particularly revolutionary, but it's gets the message across. And I always say it's better to get it done than to have it perfect. So,
Yeah.
it's just get it out there. And then what, if you're worried about no one seeing it, if no one sees it, then who cares?
Yeah. Just do it, make it perfect
Just
later.
do it. Practice. Yeah. And, it is video as well, I think, is about practicing as well. It's about practicing, getting used to it. And then, it's less intimidating. And it's good to start with the videos of yourself as well on your phone before you invest in professional videography, because you're more used to it. Because actually, when someone puts a video camera in your face, it is quite intimidating.
You suddenly freeze, don't you? Suddenly everything you had in your head just disappears. Yeah.
Well,
I'm actually doing something new today. I haven't actually done before, but I'm actually doing a vlog.
Oh, cool.
So our marketing team, we've got a new event that's launching tonight, and so like, why didn't you do a vlog for the day?
Yes, I love it. And
I'm like, what do you want me to do? And they're like,
just literally record yourself walking around in your day.
So yeah, people are looking at me awkwardly in the office, so just kind of wondering what I'm doing as I pop out with the, like you say, with the dog. I literally just done that about
Yeah.
an hour ago.
Amazing.
So
But
yeah,
you know
we'll
what?
see how that goes.
People are so nosy. Like, people are just inherently so nosy. One of the best pieces of content I think we recommended for a client was he did some analogy and put up a picture of the contents of his fridge on LinkedIn. And it was amazing. Like, so amazing. And, anything like that, it just seems really bizarre, but it can actually get really, really good results, weirdly. And it's always that thing where the stuff you think you spend hours on, you think it's going to be great, flops, and the stuff you spend 5 seconds on and forget you've even done goes crazy. Like, I put a post out about remote working on LinkedIn last week that went viral for me, and I think it ended up with like nearly 600 reactions and like 10
Wow.
shares and like hundreds of comments. But I had forgotten I'd scheduled it. So I put it through the scheduler. So I schedule all my content in advance, which is what we do for our clients as well. And I sort of just type it out as I go, like through my day. I usually have my social media scheduler open. I just put thoughts in and create posts. And I hadn't even put a graphic on it. I hadn't done a video. I just bashed it out like in about
Yeah.
5 minutes, forgotten that I'd done this post. And then suddenly my LinkedIn was blowing up over the weekend. And I was like, what the hell is this? And like people kicking off as well, like absolutely just arguing in the comments, like having a there's,
So
talk about polarizing topics, remote
we'll
working.
try and bring it up on the video. But what did you actually say?
I can't remember. No, I think it started with like, what is it with all these CEOs going back and like who seem to have taken a time machine back 10 years and are trying to force all their employees to go back to working in the office?
So it's like
Which
a point of view post, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was reasonable considering all the stuff that had been in the news, where in the news recently, there have been people saying, like former CEOs saying, oh, everyone who works from home is just lazy and not doing any work. When I run a remote business, and, I know that some people don't like that way of working, and it's totally your prerogative to have an in-person business, like, or a remote business. I don't actually care.
Yeah.
But I put it out because I'd actually been speaking to a number of marketers because, like I said, I've been hiring. And there was one who, and I'd heard this from another friend I have down the road in a totally unrelated context, where they had been offered contracts that were remote contracts a couple of years ago and had gone to these jobs that I think she lived in Wales and this job was in London. And she'd been working there for years and it wasn't performance based or anything, but she was made redundant because they were suddenly like, you have to come into the office 5 days a week. And she was like, I literally cannot get there.
Yeah.
And then they were like, okay, well, your contract's changed. So,
Right, okay.
that's one example, but it's happening across the board. And, I have a friend down the road who just left his job because he was like, I don't see the need to come and sit in an office when none of the rest of my team are in there. Like, I think all of us would agree that it's great to get together and collaborate, but there's no point trekking in on a commute if the rest of your team is not there.
Yeah.
So I thought that was more the point of my post, but everyone obviously took it in various different ways.
But
it was interesting.
It's fun, like you say. You can put all the time into every post. You can make everything perfect, post it out, and like you say, no one sees it. And you can just think of something off the bat, put it out, and you've got loads of attention. It's the way the world is now, isn't it? It really is. Like, everybody has a newspaper pretty much in their pocket that they can post stories on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just changing everything, like that attention. And also, I did a podcast with a guy a couple of weeks ago, and he got one of his biggest clients by literally just filming a drone that went through his warehouse. And that was it. Like, and he's like, I put hours and hours into my content, and that was like a piece of content that I had from ages ago, and I just put it up, and suddenly I got this message from someone saying, I've seen your post, and we'd like to have a chat. And that's just the way it goes, isn't it?
Another of the best pieces of content I ever had put out was a poll saying that, or like a post saying, I don't even think it was a poll actually. I think it was just, I don't drink coffee. So I just, it's not a health, it's not even a good reason. I just don't like the taste. So I'm a massive tea drinker, but no one ever asks you to go for a tea, like,
Oh,
or to go for, any other drink other than a coffee. It's always a coffee,
an
even though I
orange
use
juice.
the,
No
yeah,
one
I
goes for
use,
an orange juice, right?
no, I use the phrase, "Oh, do you want to have a virtual coffee?" Every time I say it, I roll my eyes because I'm like, well, I'm not going to be drinking coffee, but you can. But I will often get a hot chocolate, and I'd gone out for a meeting with someone, and I'd got a hot chocolate, and it looked amazing. It was one of these giant cups of hot chocolate with, like cream and marshmallows and everything, and I just took a photo of it. And because I'm one of those people. And then I was just like, oh, I sort of said this on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, I think that's really weird, like how we always say it's a coffee. But what if you don't like coffee? What if you like want a tea or a hot chocolate? Would you say we want to go for a virtual hot chocolate? And I put this picture up and people loved it. They were all like, yeah, I have tea or I have coffee. And they'll like go into it really, really quite in depth. And it's just such an inane kind of subject matter, but everyone likes it. It's, really interesting.
I think it's like, it's going back to, like we said, it's having almost like, I mean, obviously Donald Trump very different. He has a lot of point of views, but it's having that point of view, isn't it? As in, like, I like this, and actually putting
Yeah.
it out there. And then you
Yeah.
have 50-50, it seems. Like the whole population is like, well, no, I don't agree with you, or yes, 100% I agree with you, and that's me, and that's how it
Yeah.
works, isn't it?
I very nearly put up a post actually that I decided against in the end. I might still do it at some point. But I'm seeing a lot of these people who get up at like 4 a.m. And I don't know, the way they always talk about it always makes it feel like they're somehow superior to people like me who drag themselves out of bed at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know, I'm just like, there must be other people who are like me who find it hard to get out of bed in the morning and just want a bit of a lie-in. I'm never going to be up at 4 o'clock unless I'm getting a flight somewhere. Like, that's just not going to happen for me. And it's totally cool if that's what you want to do. But I nearly put it up and then I was still recovering from the aftermath of my previous viral post.
He thought, I just can't take
Decided
it.
not to at the moment, yeah.
I need a weekend off.
I know, I thought it would really get the backs up of those same people.
Yeah.
They're probably getting up at 4 o'clock to drag themselves into an office, I guess. But I don't know.
Probably, and type messages on LinkedIn that they're getting up at 4 a.m. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So I heard, I think you mentioned off air about a LinkedIn post that nearly lost you a client.
No, it did lose me a client.
Oh, it did?
Literally, they gave it as part of their reason for giving notice. This was literally like my first year of business. I think might have been my first ever client. I had been I was still like in the very new phases as well of being like, oh, I'm trying out LinkedIn, seeing how it works, like doing my thing. And I'd been for a prospect kind of like meeting or like a pitch or something in Chichester. And I live in sort of like South Midlands. So I had to drive back past Portsmouth to get back. And I just like needed to get some lunch, as you do in the middle of the day. So I stopped and parked and I was like, oh, I'm on my way back. I've not got anything else to do really. I've got no clients. So, fine. I'm just going to have some lunch and have a walk around the shops and stuff on like a lunch break. And because I'm a proper landlubber, I grew up in the Midlands. I'm from the Midlands. I live in the Midlands now again. I love going to the seaside because I'm like, oh my God, the sea. Because I just don't have access to it that often. And so I just took a selfie. I was like, oh, cool, with that, the tower and stuff in the background. And I put it on LinkedIn. And then about a week later, they were like, it was actually a price reason. Obviously, it wasn't that reason. But they were like, also, it looked like you were not actually doing any work. And it looked like you were on holiday in your latest LinkedIn post. And I was like, okay, good riddance. But it's one of those things.
You probably dodged a bullet there because they could have been a bit of a nightmare client.
I know, and I think what it was just really bizarre. Like I would never expect that to happen to me now. Like now is I'm going on holiday next week, and I'm just telling clients I'm like, oh, I'm really excited. I'm going on holiday next week, so this weekend I'm like going to be packing and stuff. But it's such a funny shift because I think when I was on my own, it felt like I was like, oh shit, like what should I put on? Like should I be putting this stuff out on social media? And now I'm like, this is just complete nonsense. Like they're clearly not the type of person I ever want to work with. And that's part of your values alignment as well. So, work life, it kind of comes back to recruiting ahead of the sales curve. Like work life balance is important to me. So I want it to be something that my team have. And, having that downtime for me, my best ideas come when I'm on holiday, invariably. Like so many of the pivotal points in my business have come off the back of me getting back from a holiday. So a few years ago, I joined a members club in London, and I've had some really good business and connections and stuff through there. It's really great now as a hub for me. Like when I meet clients, I took a prospect there the other day for lunch. It's a really, really great thing for me to do. And I had that idea when I was on holiday in St. Lucia a few years ago, because I just had the time to think about it. And then I was like, oh, okay, great, I can do that.
Do you bring a notebook with you on holiday?
No, but I just make notes on my phone usually.
Oh yeah, that's true. You can do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm old school. I bring a notebook. And
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, and and then last year when I went on holiday to Norway, I had the idea that I needed to make some changes in the business to increase profitability, and then off the back of that, managed to get our managing director on board, our fractional managing director Nick. So invariably, like, I've got my holiday coming up. I'm genuinely really excited because it's going to give me the opportunity to have the space and the distance to think about what we need to do next. And it's not that I go on holiday to deliberately think about that, because I do like to use it to really not think about work. But inevitably, after you've had the first few days where you're kind of relaxed a little bit, you will just naturally think of things, and you might see something that inspires you, or just have the space. And I think thinking time is really underrated. We should all kind of carve out thinking time in our day or our week to just think about things, or read something, or do something that's not directly doing the work.
It helps if you've got a dog, because I've got a dog, and
Yeah, I
you
imagine.
can go on a walk and put a podcast on, or just put a different perspective, and you're just out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I've used that quite a few times, but no, I think like you said, it's definitely getting out of environment is one of the big things that kind of spikes those ideas. And sometimes it seems so clear when you're not in the day to day that you're able to make those big changes when you come back. I wanted to touch, so you've got managing director Nick. You had a business coach. Are they the same person, or is it a different person?
They are different. So I have a business coach, Ash, who I've worked with for a couple of years now. He is absolutely brilliant. They do serve a very different purpose, I find. So Ash is very much there predominantly for me. So he's very much like a sounding board. We catch up once every kind of like 3 to 4 weeks usually. But he's available the rest of the time. And he's really kind of been with me through each stage of growth at the business. I actually first got to know him by joining a group program that he ran a few years ago, and then kind of upgraded to the kind of one-on-one coaching. But he just will challenge me. So he will. Coaching is obviously very different to something like mentoring or managing. So the coaching approach, I'll just kind of talk things through and think out loud, and then he'll challenge me on some of my assumptions, or say, or play devil's advocate a lot and say, have you thought of this? Nick's role in the business, he works in the business a day and a half a week. So he's actually there regularly, like engaging with other members of the team. So he takes on more of the operational side of things. And there's a really great book I'm sure you've come across called Traction. And I've
heard of it. I have not actually read it.
Have you not? It's worth it. It's worth a look.
Yeah.
And we're both big subscribers, me and Nick, to the Traction kind of way. They kind of talk about this entrepreneur's operating system. And I would recommend it to anyone thinking of starting a business where you want to employ people as well, because it's really, really interesting. But they, in that book, the guy who wrote it identified 2 roles of the leadership. So there's kind of like the visionary and the integrator. So for me and Nick, it's often a CEO and a managing director type role. So for me as the founder, I'm more the visionary. So that's like kind of driving the vision, looking at what we're going to do, new products, new services. I'm very much like a starter, not a finisher. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And I do some really intense work starting it. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm bored now. So someone else needs to finish it off.
That is exactly what I'm like as well. Yeah.
Right. So a visionary. And then you've got the integrator. So the integrator is more the person who's looking at things like operations and whatever. I mean, it's the stuff that's really boring, but really important. So Nick has been fundamental. He joined us last July, and in 6 months he has been we've increased our hourly rate by £20. We have got proper contracts in place. We're moving towards longer contracts with clients. We're upselling our existing accounts and expanding them. We've brought on new clients who are a much better fit for us. It's really hard sometimes to quantify the investment in that kind of role, but he's also given me breathing space. Like if there's a question about IT, I'm just like, I don't know or really care. So can you just deal with it? I'm like, I get it's important and I totally support you doing it and support the direction of travel. but I'm not going to be the one who is able to follow that through. And just, even like debrief calls and stuff, he's put in a really great debrief process. When something doesn't go quite as planned, we all get together internally and look it through. And he's really great at that, giving that objectivity where I'm maybe too close to it because it's my business and it feels more personal for me. He's really great at looking at it from an objective point of view and saying, well, this is what we need to go through, so that we can then make that progress and just keeping us on track in that way. So they are very different roles, but hopefully that
It was a
makes it
really
clear.
good explanation because, the difference between a CEO and an MD is often confused.
Yes,
And
yeah.
essentially, like you've described it, the visionary is someone who is pushing the business forward, and the other is the one that's in the business and actually making that vision happen.
Yes,
Day
exactly.
to day, that sort of side of things. So no, it's a really good way of working, and obviously has proven that it's working really well for Freshbat as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the future. Obviously, we talked a little bit about vision. So what is the vision for Freshbat?
So we have got pretty big goals. We want to basically be the outsourced marketing department of choice for SMEs SME consultancies in the UK, really. But we are already starting to see interest from further afield as well. So we do sometimes get inquiries from, the US and Canada and things. But I'm kind of quite happy to focus on the UK for the time being. But, for me, the vision is really about delivering excellence, and is something I've said so many times to my team over the last couple of weeks. They're probably sick to the back teeth of it. But, it's about not just doing the average or just doing the same as everyone else. It's how can we get to the point where we are delivering not just excellent marketing, but an excellent experience for our clients as well, which is a really interesting challenge in a remote business, because you kind of think, how do you deliver a great experience when it's all so intangible and so, remote? But there are things we're thinking about around that. So I would say we're still very much at the beginning of that journey. We do not have all the answers yet. I do not know exactly how it's all gonna kind of play out, but yeah, that's the kind of vision. We're adding some new services as well, so on a more tactical level, so that we can deliver that. We are actually adding PPC to our services, to support with that kind of like top of funnel lead generation for our clients, and adding more specialists in terms of, SEO, and like copywriting, digital PR, those kind of things. So there are quite a lot of moves at the moment in the direction of just making sure we are a fully kind of properly resourced, kind of outsourced marketing department for our clients, and can kind of cover all of those content marketing bases, which is a key part of the vision, I guess, is in terms of delivering excellence. We need to have the right expertise in place to support that.
Yeah, that's great. I actually spoke with a guy called Richard Few, which the podcast is out on Tuesday, and he's specialised in being an outsourced sales
Oh, cool.
department
Yeah.
for companies, and they're doing really well. So they're called
Yeah.
Sales Geeks, probably worth looking
Oh,
into.
nice. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, they've really niched down in that sales area about outsourcing that sales director role. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a good vision to have.
Yeah.
Catherine, I've loved having you on the show. I've got 3 final questions for you, quick round
Yep.
for you, quick
Oh,
fire round
God.
even. First of all, what's the best business advice you've ever received?
I think just get it done. Just get it done. Don't worry about perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. Get it out there. Don't worry about it. Get it out there and move on to the next thing, I would say.
Love that. Agreed. What advice would you give to someone looking to start a business?
Oh, I would say surround yourself with people who know more than you do. And definitely like be humble. Like, I know people throw that word around a lot, but like recognize that if you're just starting out, you don't know how to run a business if you've never run one before. Like, in the nicest possible way, I was the same. I didn't know how to run a business. I'm still learning every day how to run a good business. And so, yeah, the most important thing is probably to surround yourself with people and expose yourself to people who have got so much more knowledge than you, and just take it all in. Like, learn as much as you can, learn every day, embrace the learning, and then apply it, I would say. And don't hesitate to apply it. Just try it. If it doesn't work, stop doing it and do something else. Like, it's fine.
Good. And finally, what podcasts or books have you read recently that have made an impact to you?
So I've been focusing very specifically on marketing agency ones. So I'll give you a couple of those, and then maybe some more generic ones. But Agencynomics, the book, great. Love it. If you are in marketing or starting a marketing agency, it was really, really interesting. And kind of linked to that, well, it's not the same company, but there's a podcast called Build a Better Agency, and it's brilliant. I love it. It's by a guy in America called Drew McClellan, I think. And it's just so interesting. He has guests and stuff. I listened to a really good podcast recently, which was what he would do if he was starting an agency in 2025. And it was so interesting. It's actually kind of influenced quite a lot of our direction of travel this year. But there's another really great book I'm reading at the moment, which is relevant kind of more broadly, called Never Lose a Customer Again, and is really interesting. It's about, again, like kind of like I was talking about creating the really great experiences, and how you can, even from before you even speak to them, so their really initial stages, make sure you're delivering a great experience throughout the customer journey. So how can you go above and beyond in your sales process to make sure that you're standing out versus your competitors, and how do you turn it into such a no-brainer decision that someone says yes, they want to work with you? There are loads of really interesting things in there about like physical experiences as well. So things like, the author was talking about some prospect she was talking to who's really into golf, and then she went to like a golf place and found a signed golf ball or something and sent it to him in the post, and she called it like the 300K golf ball or something. And like it turned into a $300,000 deal because he was like,
Wow.
oh, amazing, this is so thoughtful, because she sent it with a handwritten
Yeah.
note. And I think it's a really important point in the digital age that we're in. Everyone thinks, oh, it all just has to be digital, but it actually means there's much more space to do some really good like direct mail marketing as well. So where you're actually sending something physical in the post. And we're actually about to send out our first Freshbat magazine that will be a printed kind of glossy magazine with lots of
Excellent.
marketing articles and things in there. So it's something we're trying to embrace as well. But yeah, it's worth thinking a bit more creatively about how you can engage with your prospects, and then continue that through the journey when they're working with you.
Some really good recommendations there, and I definitely think I'll check out that a couple of those books as well, because I'm actually going on holiday in a few weeks as well. So
So some nice beach reads.
I've got some reading to do. Catherine, it's been fantastic having you on the show today. So those listeners that want to find out more about you, where can they do that?
Yep, so I am pretty active on LinkedIn. That's probably usually the best place to find me. So if you just search Catherine Storey, Freshbat, I should appear. But then we also have our website, freshbat.com. We have some videos on our YouTube channel, which is very small, but it kind of gives you an interesting overview of kind of some of the services we offer. I'm on TikTok as the strategic marketer. So I'm a few different places. And we also have an email newsletter where we send out weekly value email tips as well.
Brilliant. Well, that's fantastic, Catherine. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
So that was Catherine Storey, everyone. We'll be back next week. But if you enjoyed this podcast, if you could do one thing for me, and that's either like, follow, or subscribe to the channel on your podcast listening app. It just enables us to grow the show. Thank you.